Look, I have never been a fan of horror films. Despite that, I've attempted, a number of times, to give the genre a fair chance. And yet somehow, each and every time I gave it a shot, my mind would tear into it like a ravenous bear in the wild who happens upon an unsuspecting moose. And without fail, I'd find gaping plot holes where my mind's claws frantically searched for things like continuity or logic. Time and time again, I'd end up like a student whose hand was left raised, waiting desperately as the burning question in their chest is left to die. I'd arrive at the second act, covered in plot guts, wondering why I keep doing this to myself. I'm a masochist. Anyways, looking back, most often, it was because I was dragged there by someone I love. I'd look around me in the theater to see people on the edge of their seats. They'd walk out of there, smiling and teasing one another about the jump scares, and I'd walk out further assured that this genre just wasn't made for me. And then, on one fateful day, it happened. I decided to take my head out of my ass. Figured I'd have some conversations with some friends that were actually fans of the genre, and I'd come to learn that for them it was more about the experience of the film. In their words, more or less, they'd say things like, "We know the blood is fake, we know the physics are all over the place, and we can even know, more or less, how it ends, and we couldn't care less. We show up for the experience. What we don't know is when it will happen. We don't know how. We're immersed in the set design, the practical effects, and the callbacks to earlier decades of the genre. We show up for the culture, like a virtual haunted house." And it was after this conversation that a long-standing, dusty light bulb finally came on above my head. This shit just ain't for me. And that's okay. In fact, I'd like to take this moment for a quick PSA. I truly believe that if more of us just allowed people to love what they love without judgment, we wouldn't be hurtling at light speed toward nuclear annihilation. But that's a conversation for another video. My point is, do what you love. I didn't make this to bash people who love this genre. If you love it, I love that for you, and I will protect your right to love it in any way that I can. As for me, if someone I love wants to spend their precious life energy with me in a horror film they hold dearly, I will watch it from start to finish. And if I see a character try to crawl through a cat door to escape danger, or throw a beer bottle with so much force that it knocks a fully adult human onto the ground, you gon' get these jokes. Anyone in my life who would fully expects as much from me. Which brings me, finally, to the horror film my brain, my mind, let me love. Some not-so-quick background information on me. I am an early 90s baby, with an 80s baby for an older brother and Xers as parents. I also have a younger millennial as a younger sister, but that really didn't need to be said, and here I've said it anyway. Anyway, the point is, I've got a foot in both worlds. The highly digital one unfolding before us with vast, uniquely niche cultures and ideologies mixing and clashing in all manner of ways in virtual gladiatorial arenas and hideouts. And the analog, homogeneous, or I should say more homogeneous one of the world prior to the millennium. Most, if not all, of my questions during my Y phase as a child went to my parents. I didn't really start using Google for anything other than online games and memes until I was a freshman in high school. Oh, and porn. Lots of porn. I'm presenting the difference in those worlds to give emphasis to how insane it was that I hadn't actually seen the horror film I'm about to reveal until yesterday. I'd heard of it. I'd even been in the same room when it was on, but I didn't actually sit down and watch it with a fully functioning brain, more or less, until yesterday. That film is Scream. To be fair, I was 4 when the film was released, and given the alarming frequency of night terrors I'd experienced all throughout childhood, it probably wouldn't have gone well for me to watch it all during those years. Like, the first time I saw Deku in Zelda Ocarina of Time, I had a nightmare that same night where one of them was sucking my face off, and not in a good way. I'm 4, what the fuck? Anyways, I'd already had a horrifyingly violent imagination as it was, and I probably wouldn't have caught what ultimately makes this film so special to me now, 30 years later. 30 years! Had I watched Scream in college when I was experimenting with substances and experiences that have the potential to open one's mind, I'd probably have caught on to the magic much earlier, but who's to even say? All I know for sure is that as of yesterday, I watched a horror film that my ravenous, graphic mind let me love. And here's why. As previously mentioned, nearly every other horror film I'd watched up to this point left me with unanswered questions and irreconcilable character choices that left me wondering if I'm actually just a masochist looking for my next fix. I am. Whatever it is, I crave substance from my art. I don't need you to answer life's biggest questions. I need you to say something. Take me on a ride. Show me your world. I'm all for fun. I love absurdity and humor more than most, probably more than I should. But even absurdity requires an established idea of normalcy for contrast. What I'm saying is that even in art, there are some rules. Which brings me to the 3 scenes that made this film transcendent for me. Quick warning. I fucking hate spoilers, okay? So this is your warning. Go watch the film and come back if you haven't seen it and you want to know what I'm talking about without me ruining it for you. You see, because I have had a handful of dickheads ruin powerful movie moments for me over the years, and I'd hate to do that to you. You've been warned. My girlfriend is a huge fan of this series, and I am a huge fan of her. As such, when she brought up the idea of watching the films with me, I could see the passion in her eyes. I could hear the excitement welling up in her chest as she strongly recommended it to me in particular. She was sure to specify, given how you watch films, I think you're gonna like it. Now let's be clear about something. I don't like a lot of shit. I watch and experience a lot of shit, but I don't like a lot of shit. And love is all the more exclusive. But that's for another video. The point is, I accepted her offer and promptly erased any and all expectations of the film to do anything particularly spectacular. I simply relished the opportunity to experience something that was special to her. Of course, 15 minutes in, I was losing my fucking mind about the stovetop popcorn being left unattended. I was wondering how expensive it was to have Drew Barrymore on screen for those 15 minutes, and if it was equal to or greater than the cost of every other part of the film, actors and practical effects included. I laughed every time our costume killers were blindsided by doors and cabinets all throughout the film. I even sadistically rooted for the killers whenever a character ran themselves into a corner or locked themselves in a room, because surely they must have wanted to die if the front door wasn't the first and only fucking option. I was almost certain our protagonist's father was the killer, and desperately hoping he wasn't so I could have a novel experience from a horror film for once. And boy, did I. The closest people to me know very well that I'm probably a little too self-aware. It's something about me that I can confidently say will never change. I crave and respect it in others, and I especially love it in art. The everybody is a suspect scene at Bradley Video Store felt like having decades of angst addressed in the funniest, most thrilling way I'd ever seen in this genre. Matthew Lillard, Jamie Kennedy, and Skeet Ulrich have an exchange that it feels like the friends I needed by my side as I analyzed the similarities between all these films over the years. It felt like a professor pointing to me and saying, I know what you're thinking. I'm watching. I'm aware. We factored this in. Which allows someone like me for the first time to sit back and enjoy the ride. I know I'm taken care of. I know my time and my mind are being valued and respected. And for the first time with this genre, I felt like I was the target audience. It's not a common feeling, especially with someone with eclectic tastes. Which brings me to a few more disclaimers before we press on. Okay, listen close. We live in a time where a growing majority of people are chronically online and for some reason don't possess the ability to engage with anything or anyone with a semblance of nuance. In an effort to get said people to find somewhere else to be insufferable, I want to be clear. I discuss art a lot, and it is very important that we understand the nature of that discussion. I'm not saying this is a perfect movie by any means. I don't even look at art that way. I don't even think such words really fit analysis when it comes to art. To me, it's a mix of the artist's intent and one's unique perspective that results in an experience that either resonates with you or it doesn't. Perfect doesn't really have a home in this space for me. You could absolutely love this film or hate it to death. Neither has any bearing on the fact that this one was the first one that my mind let me love. We clear? Moving on. The next scene that captured my heart has a very similar energy. It dives into the specifics of the rules. Our horror movie fanatic breaks down the rules of horror movie plots, and each of them play out in real time while watching a horror film. It was like putting two mirrors together and seeing an infinite loop of commentary and action. It was delightfully trippy and right up my alley. As an artist myself and an avid enjoyer of it, I've come to find that the tone of a work of art has a significant impact on how that art is received and how it is processed. You can have a fascinating, vibrant world with rich foundations and implications to explore, but the wrong tone can undermine and even overshadow all of it. It's like going to a theme park named after its wildest roller coaster, but spending the entire day in line for cotton candy. With every step forward, every hour, you can hear the screams and exhilaration from the most exciting thing happening in the park. But our plot is about what color food coloring we're going to eat when we finally get there. To me, tone is the emotional mission or center of a piece of art. And if we aren't centered in the magic, we're either being fucked with, which happens, or we've got a bit of a problem. Hence the phrase, tone deaf. It's used in music primarily, but it can be applied universally in this context to the emotional center of a given story or statement. You can have all the right words, but if you have the wrong person saying them, or even the right person saying them in the wrong way, it can strip it of any and all potency, and in the worst cases, even actively harm the piece as a whole. I'm not naming any names of anything that does this because that goes against my values artistically. I just want us all to step into the sacred artistic spaces of one another with reverence. I want us all to experience one another personally. Forget my take. What's yours? I ask because I find that art is powerful because of its freedom within and around constraint. As such, you're free to love, hate, or question anything. To me, art is about consciousness. It's about experience. And when you approach it from that place, you might find that it's easier to reconcile and even understand two opposing perspectives on a piece. It's about the introspection. It's about the journey inward. and the resonance one might find in the myriad facets of the story. That said, the tones I've come to love over the years range from hyper self-awareness to the outright brash. I've found that these more extreme polarities are riskier and often alienate those of us who might have different sensibilities. So be it, I say. If you have something you want to say or something you want to show the world, do what must be done. Some people are gonna hate it no matter what. Do it anyway. Tell your truth. What I'm saying is that my tastes have a lot to do with who I am as a person. My life, with its twists and turns and the experiences that make my heart swell. Wherever your tonal home is with the art that calls to you, all I ask as a viewer is that you be honest, be true. I resonate with the tone of Scream more than anything else. To me, the tone says, we're aware of your expectations. We're aware of the rules. And whether you're a devotee or a skeptic, welcome. Watch us break the rules as we reveal them to you. Watch as we reinvent this genre before your very eyes. Which brings me to the scene that was the cherry on top of an already delicious cheesecake. Do cherries go on cheese? At last, we've arrived at the scene that signed, sealed, and delivered my enthusiasm for the rest of the series. The moment where all is made clear. All of our suspicions are confirmed true or false, and the entire mechanism for the killings is laid bare for all to see. Tonally, I found the way Billy and Stu almost regressed into children when they were certain that there was no escape for their victims to be particularly striking. The subtle acting here is phenomenal. As an actor myself, I have an immense fascination with character acting and portrayal, and my favorite place to dive in and revel in this art form is in the micro expressions and the mannerisms. One of the things that fascinated me the most and really ignited my passion for this craft as a whole was the revelation that everything you see in a film or read in a written story is there on purpose. Everything. The angle, the colors, the music, the placement, the timing, etc. All of it is deliberate. And I think that's what makes stories so immersive and relieving for so many of us on our journey through life, because it's the one place where there is most certainly an answer and a reason for everything. It mirrors life in many ways and needs to for a sense of grounding, but it sharply contrasts with real life in many forms due to the inherent ambiguity that makes up the experience of life as a human being. In a manner of speaking, the magic of some stories is in the ambiguity. The details that are left to your imagination almost act as a mirror into your own psychology as you fill in the blanks based on your own unique vantage point and life journey. Which brings us back to what makes this scene so special to me. When Billy and Stu reveal that they're the ones responsible for the horrible crimes that have occurred over the course of this story, they do two things. They literally explain how everything fits together and the methods for the killings, but they also reveal the depth of their depravity. They reveal the darkness they've so masterfully hidden under the guise of their external personas. Through their body language, the giddy, almost shrieking laughter they share as they describe the morbid details of their evil machinations conveys a sense of pleasure in human suffering that can only come from the darkest depths of a human being. That very same darkness that exists at the center of each of us and beckons us all back to it in the end manifests in such a beautifully grotesque, revelatory, ecstatic way that felt masterful in its execution. Some of my favorite lines are in this scene. This dark, unflinching gaze into the soul of an almost subhuman being, responsible for the unthinkable, unraveling before us, stabbing each other to sell the lie for the ensuing investigation. Even the way they hold the knife feels like an extension of their bodies. They hold it with the same reverence as one would a baby. It reveals their connection to violence as power, a chance to play God. And why? Well, masterfully, they leave that up to interpretation. After all, a lot is said in that kitchen. To me, the purpose of art isn't to necessarily nail down all of the details and conquer it like a puzzle. To me, the purpose of art is to explore what resonates. And sometimes, nothing resonates. For me, violence, darkness, and pain are powerful, resonant forces in every part of my life. The concept of being true to oneself involves voluntary surrender to the forces of violence, darkness, and pain. Why? Well, for me, it's to truly come to terms with such forces, to control and use them as necessary. They exist for a reason. If I were trapped in a space with a killer with no way of escape, then I'm sure as shit gonna reach as deep into my darkness as possible to overcome and incapacitate the threat. I would use my sometimes troubling capacity for empathy and love to summon the cold, calculated killer I needed to be to meet the moment. And maybe I fail, but I'd rest easier knowing I tried everything I could, even if it meant silencing my morality in that moment, as it would hinder my ability to confront the darkness before me in full. This scene laid that darkness out bare in a fascinating, asymmetrical way that I just hadn't seen before, especially from this genre. The acting was spectacular, and I knew then that if this was something they were capable of with the first film, I'd surely be watching the rest. Now, who knows if they keep that thread alive? I've heard some shit, but we know. So, let's sum it up. I am by no means a horror fan now, and I hate watching these films when I'm eating, but I am a fan of Scream. I accept the loose relationship with physics, the questionable choices by most, if not all, of the characters, and the surprising power of doors, cabinets, and cold beers, all because they absolutely nailed a tone that spoke to me. They managed to ground me in their world of horror. Me, who revels in headassery of the highest order. Me, who has turned a great many horror movie screenings into full-on group roast sessions. They got me, y'all, for the next 6 movies, all from tone and 3 scenes. Why? It's not because they answered the biggest burning questions of human existence. It wasn't because they created a flawless and 100% immersive experience from start to finish. It was because they acknowledge what I had been seeing for decades, trying to understand why people still liked this shit. And not only did they acknowledge it, they took me somewhere new within a genre I'd written off altogether. And they did it with charm, humor, awareness, and gave us a horrifying front row seat to the minds behind the sadistic murders. They gave us a classic twist in a revolutionary way. They ventured boldly into fortune's favor and returned with my curiosity, but most importantly, my heart. But that's just me. What about you? You know what to do. I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.